In this episode, we talk about the measures taken by the Indian Army to prepare for harsh winter conditions in the eastern Ladakh area. We also give you an update on India's space dreams. But first, we talk about a mutiny in Bengal BJP. Hi, I'm Rahel Philipose, and you are listening to Three Things, the Indian Express News Show. Since last month, the state BJP leadership, which is the main opposition party in West Bengal, has been confronted with protests from within their own party ranks. When we spoke to the Indian Express's Santanu Chowdhury, he told us that the state BJP president, Sukanta Majumdar, is among those who are facing the anger of the party workers. In fact, during one of the protests staged outside the BJP's headquarters in Kolkata, some BJP cadres demanded that Majumdar and a few other leaders should be removed from their posts.
Some BJP workers also took posters of the Sukanta Majumdar and others and defaced the posters. So this had caused major upset to the BJP. And it may be noted that last month, BJP MP, and he is also the Union Minister of State for Education, Subhash Sarkar, was locked inside a party office in Bankura by irate BJP workers. They allege that he has been completely missing in action and he did not stand by the party workers who were facing atrocities at the hands of TMC workers. And he was locked inside a party office for some hours. And later that month, some BJP workers had also took to the streets and burned tires and demanded that Subhash Sarkar should come out and stand by the BJP workers.
To know why the BJP workers are speaking out against the state leadership and how it may impact the party's vision for West Bengal, my colleague Utsa Sarmin speaks to Shantanu in this segment.
So Shantanu, can you first tell us why is the BJP witnessing such a mutiny among its party workers?
Yeah, ever since the BJP lost the Panchayat elections in West Bengal and couldn't put up a good fight against the ruling Trinamool Congress, there has been protest in some pockets of the state by some BJP party workers against the state BJP leadership for failing to make a mark in the recently held elections. Besides that, the party workers also were not happy with the changes that were made in the district committees by the state leadership, and they alleged that under the leadership of state BJP president Sukanta Majumdar, the party brought in newcomers to the posts in the district committees, ignoring the contribution of the party old-timers. This has upset the party workers who had aligned with the old-timer leaders, and they took to the streets and they also went outside the party offices in several areas of the districts expressing their grievances against the state BJP leadership for ignoring the contribution of the old-timers who had helped the party found some ground in West Bengal for several years. So this has been the situation in some pockets of the state, but now the protests have gained some strength. And recently, around 40 to 50 BJP workers went outside the state BJP headquarters in central Kolkata and held a protest against the state BJP leaderships. They alleged that the party leaderships were taking decisions unilaterally. The party leaders were not standing by the BJP workers who were facing atrocities at the hands of Trinamool Congress workers after the Panchayat poll elections were held. And they also alleged that they have been taking a dictatorial attitude against the party workers.
And could you talk about how the state leadership has reacted to this mutiny?
Yes, the BJP leadership has reacted strongly to this kind of protest. Sukanta Majumdar has said that strong action would be taken against those who had organized these kind of protests and who had took out their posters and defaced them. And he said that, this is not the kind of attitude that the party tolerates, and the party maintains a strong discipline across all levels. So this kind of protest is unfortunate and shouldn't have been taken place. At the same time, BJP state spokesperson Shamik Bhattacharya said that they should sit and hold talks with these protesters and try to address their grievances and why they are organizing such kind of protests, and if they have any kind of issues with the state leadership, then that should be sorted out by holding talks with them. So this is the two kind of reactions that has come from the state BJP leadership.
Right, and we understand that veteran BJP leaders like Dilip Ghosh had expressed their concerns over how the party has addressed this issue. Talk to us about what he had said about the matter.
Yeah, the BJP MP Dilip Ghosh, who is also the former state BJP president, has said that, the party shouldn't, ignore issues or the points the protesters are raising. The protesters might have something to say and these should be addressed by holding talks with them. He also asked the current state leadership to not to, adopt such strong arm tactics to deal with these kind of protesters. He has, asked them to, hold talks with them and sort their issues out. Because you have to understand that this is a Dilip Ghosh we are talking about. He was instrumental in helping the party grow in West Bengal. Even he was the state BJP president when the party had won 18 Lok Sabha seats in 2019 Lok Sabha polls. But later on, we've seen that, there was a change in the state leadership and Sukanta Majumdar, another MP from Balughat, was brought in. And recently, earlier this year, the BJP MP Dilip Ghosh was removed as the national vice president of the party. So there is clearly some BJP leaders, a large section of BJP workers are not happy with such kind of decisions, and they had also expressed their displeasures after Dilip Ghosh was, removed from the national vice president's post. So he has definitely asked them not to, jump the gun and ignore the contribution of these workers, because these are some of the dedicated workers who had worked for the party and who has faced batons from the goons of the Trinamool Congress. That's what he has alleged.
Now, Shantanu, considering that the Lok Sabha polls are just a few months away, do you think this mutiny would have a significant impact on BJP's goals for Bengal?
Yes, because the general elections will be held earlier next year. There are reports that it could be held in the month of March and April. So there isn't much time for the BJP to, keep his house in order. And this kind of mutiny and protest will set a bad precedent for the state leadership. And they would have to first address these, concerns and these issues before taking on the ruling Trinamool Congress. Because you have to take into account the fact that recently the BJP also lost the Dhupguri Assembly constituency to the Trinamool Congress in a by-elections. The party had won that, seat in 2021 state assembly polls. But in a by-poll, they lost the seat to the Trinamool Congress. So it shows that the BJP is losing ground in West Bengal. And this is not a good sign before the general elections, because the party has set a target of winning 35 Lok Sabha seats from West Bengal. Union Home Minister Amit Shah has set a target of winning 35 seats when he had come in the state in April earlier this year. But having set such a big target from the state BJP leadership, which is struggling to hold on to these grounds in West Bengal, would seem as a daunting task for the BJP leaders, given the fact that if these kind of protests continue.
And could you talk about how the ruling Trinamool Congress feels about this mutiny?
Yes, the TMC has been, ridiculing the BJP for failing to control its workers after seeing this kind of protest that has been taking place. TMC State General Secretary Kunal Ghosh has, mocked the BJP and said that they can't keep its house in order, and yet they are thinking of, achieving a target of 35 seats from West Bengal when they are clearly losing its support in West Bengal. TMC's Rajya Sabha MP Shantanu Chowdhury has, said that BJP has turned into a joker party which cannot control its workers. So there is this kind of, kind of statement that have been made against the BJP leadership after this kind of protests. But the TMC is one way happy to see this kind of protest taking place, because BJP is the prime opposition party in the state and their main competitor in West Bengal. So they are feeling at ease to see that, BJP is struggling to rein in on the irate BJP workers. They have, successfully won the panchayat elections. They have established their stronghold across the state. They have also snatched the Dhupguri Assembly constituency from the BJP. So they are, feeling confident of taking BJP head on in the next general elections. So the TMC is seeing this as a blow to the state BJP leadership.
And next we talk about the army. Ever since the start of India's standoff with China along the line of actual control in 2020, the Indian Army has deployed over 400 tanks and other mechanized vehicles in eastern Ladakh. Prior to the Chinese incursions in the summer of 2020, only a third of these vehicles were stationed in the region. However, according to officials, maintaining a fleet of this size and ensuring that these vehicles remain battle-ready 24/7 is a massive challenge, particularly in eastern Ladakh, which is known for its inaccessibility and punishingly low temperatures during the winter months. And so to address these challenges, the Indian Army has taken several measures to prepare these vehicles for the harsh winter conditions. These measures include setting up temperature-controlled shelters and using special fuel and batteries. The Indian Express's Amrita Nayak Dutta joins us in this segment to talk about the Army's plans and why these tanks are so important. So, Amrita, before we get into winter preparedness, can you talk about what the current situation in eastern Ladakh is?
So, Rahel, this will be the fourth consecutive winter marking this military standoff between India and China, which began in April and May 2020. So, early last week, India and China held the 20th round of military talks, and it did not seem that there was any concrete forward movement on the resolution of legacy issues or an overall de-escalation of troops in eastern Ladakh. So, I'll just quickly take you through on what has happened in the last 3 years. I would say the concrete forward movement happened in September last year when both sides pulled back troops to disengage from Patrol Point 15 in the Gogra Hot Springs area of eastern Ladakh. And this marked a step forward in the military standoff between the two sides. That was the last concrete movement that happened after the talks between the two sides. So then there were friction points such as Galwan Valley, north and south banks of Pangong So and the Gogra Hot Springs area. And these areas have seen some kind of resolution in the last 3 years because buffer zones have been created in these zones. So either side is not really able to access the patrol points of which they earlier used to access. So that is there. And there's no disengagement so far in the legacy friction points such as Depsang Plains and Demchok. Around 50 to 60,000 troops continue to remain deployed on both sides of the India-China border. And with no concrete resolution in the last talk, the army is now preparing for its winter posture in the region.
Right. And Amrita, you spoke about this massive deployment that continues even now. So if you could talk a little bit about the scale of it, because we're not just looking at soldiers being deployed in this region. There's also a huge amount of arms, ammunition, tanks, and, other mechanized vehicles. Talk to us about that particular aspect.
So, since the start of the standoff along the LAC following the Chinese incursions in May 2020, the army has deployed over 400 or nearly 3 brigades of Russian origin T-72 and T-90 tanks as well as BMPs in eastern Ladakh. Prior to 2020, there was just a third of these assets which were stationed in the region. Now, tanks have been inducted across Jozila in the high mountain pass in 1948. But frontline main battle tanks like T-90, they have been recently inducted in the region. What makes their deployment suitable in the region is Ladakh's dry desert-like terrain and its broad river valleys in which tanks can suitably maneuver. So that is one thing. And I must tell you that apart from BMP's heavy artillery guns, they also have been deployed. So these are the heavy platforms which have been deployed in eastern Ladakh in the last 3 years. Apart from that, a range of surveillance equipment like drones and other latest technologies, they have also been inducted apart from thousands of troops in the region.
Right. And you spoke about how the terrain is very suitable for these vehicles, but there's also this aspect of the winter and, these punishingly low temperatures. So what challenges does that throw up for the army?
Seriously, Rahel, deploying tanks and heavy platforms, heavy guns and BMPs, there is one thing, and maintaining them in the very harsh weather conditions where temperatures go up to minus 30 degrees is a different challenge, keeping them battle ready at all times. Permanent deployment and their maintenance, and to ensure that they are operationally ready all the time, 24/7 in such winters, in such harsh temperatures, it is a logistical nightmare for the army. So since the fuel can freeze and the batteries may not function properly, the operational readiness of the platforms can be affected unless they're seriously maintained.
And Amrita, could you tell us how the army plans to counter these issues?
So Rahel, given the sheer number of tanks and BMPs that have been deployed in the region in the last 3 years, as I told you, it's been over 400. The army is using special fuel and multi-grade lubricants which are resilient to extreme cold temperature ranges. Such fuel and lubricants which were originally developed for the alpine regions, they have now been introduced by Indian companies as well. Moreover, better hydraulic fluids which do not freeze at low temperatures and do not lose viscosity due to extensive operations for tanks and artillery guns are also being introduced for Ladakh. And the normal lead acid batteries which do not function in such cold temperatures. For that, the army is getting pure lead tin batteries for the entire range of heavy vehicles which have been deployed in eastern Ladakh. They are known to have better tolerance to low temperatures, and I must also mention that heated shelters have been created extensively in the last 3 years in eastern Ladakh for these armored vehicles. Apart from that, routine drills like continuous operational checks, movement drills, and day and night training, they are always held regularly to keep both the tanks and the crew battle ready round the clock. And I have also mentioned in the report, which has appeared in the Indian Express, that repair facilities for these tanks, which earlier were located far off, they have also been constructed, medium repair facilities for the regular maintenance of these tanks. So the tanks do not have to travel all the way back to Udhampur so much now, but they can travel a little ahead of Leh and they can be repaired and maintained over there.
Right. So there's a lot of infrastructure required for these vehicles. Could you tell us a little bit about it and how the army is working towards maintaining this infrastructure?
So a lot of infrastructure has been constructed in the last 3 years in eastern Ladakh, and this includes roads, bridges, habitat for the troops deployed there, and infrastructure for keeping the tanks and the heavy guns ready all the time. Infrastructure like heated shelters and repair facilities have been created. Now, repair facilities in different parts of Ladakh, they are obviously very helpful in ensuring the timely maintenance of the tanks instead of them having to take months to travel all the way to Udhampur like they used to do in the past.
And in the end, we give you an update about India's space dreams. Yesterday, Prime Minister Narendra Modi directed the Department of Space to aim at setting up an Indian space station, Bharatiya Antariksha Station, by the year 2035. He also said that India should send astronauts to the moon by 2040. The Prime Minister gave these directions during a high-level meeting, which was called to assess progress of India's Gaganyaan mission and to outline the future of India's space exploration endeavours. In a statement, the Prime Minister's office said that he chaired the high-level meeting to assess the progress of India's Gaganyaan mission. It said, quote, building on the success of the Indian space initiatives, including the recent Chandrayaan-3 and Aditya L1 missions, the Prime Minister directed that India should now aim for new and ambitious goals, including setting up Bharatiya Antariksha Station by 2035 and sending the first Indian to the moon by 2040, unquote. The statement also said that the Department of Space will develop a roadmap for moon exploration to realize India's visions. This will encompass a series of Chandrayaan missions, the development of a next-generation launch vehicle, construction of a new launch pad, and also setting up human-centric laboratories and associated technologies. Now, to understand why the Prime Minister emphasized lunar explorations, we need to look at the importance of the moon as a first step to further deep space exploration. Recently, Indian Express's Amitabh Sinha had joined Nandagopal Rajan on an episode of Our Own Devices, and he explained that the period between the 1960s and 1970s witnessed an intense rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union in their quest to conquer the moon. This rivalry is what culminated in the historic landing of Apollo 11 in 1969, a mission that marked humanity's first steps on the lunar surface.
So at that point of time, yes, landing human beings on moon was a huge technological leap. I mean, it's unimaginable the significance of the achievement that was done in 1960s. It would also become more clear if we realize that space age had begun just about 12 years ago. So in 12 years from sending the first satellite in space, we landed human beings on moon. I mean, it's a super fast kind of technology development.
However, Amitabh states that after 6 Apollo missions, which had successfully transported a total of 12 astronauts to the moon by 1972, lunar exploration came to an abrupt halt.
Once we did land on moon, in itself it was a huge achievement. But having done that, there was we didn't know what to do ahead. I mean, what to do more and how to take it forward. And that was mainly because, the technology ecosystem that would have allowed us to take the benefit of that landing, that achievement, and expand it to do something much more than that that technology ecosystem wasn't available. So we carried some of these stones and everything, and which kept scientists busy for quite some time just trying to figure out what is the mineralogy of the moon and all those sort of things. But we didn't know what to do next after that. And suddenly, that's why you see after the last Apollo mission, there is a complete lull for about 2 decades. And suddenly we start seeing this again, starting from the early 1990s. NASA sent some probe missions to moon. And then after other countries also joined in, we sent our first Chandrayaan mission in 2014, sent the second in 2019, which failed to land. But it did. The orbiter functioned quite well. And now we are sending third. And in between, lots of other countries have also sent. China has managed to make a soft landing, not humans, but the orbiter, the lander part. So there is a renewed mission interest in moon, and it is qualitatively different. We are going to moon not just with the objective of landing, but using it and using the resources available on moon to do something more.
The more that Amitabh refers to here is essentially deep space exploration, which involves using the moon as a launch pad to venture further into space.
And there are certain reasons to do that. One, of course, the gravity on moon is, of course, not as strong as on Earth. So if we spend a relatively little amount of energy in launching our rockets from moon, it would go much deeper than the kind of energy that would be required on Earth. So it makes a lot of sense for us to start launching from moon. But launching from moon, it's not a straightforward exercise. You have to build the facilities, and that facilities again would also require a lot of brick and mortar, isn't it? Not just space tech and all. And carrying all of that from here to moon to create a permanent facility, a permanent laboratory, a permanent launch station at moon, that again doesn't work out economically. So the idea then is to use the internal resources of moon in situ, whatever resources are available, use that to build a permanent research facility on moon, and then use moon to launch human beings much further into space. And the difference from the previous time and now is that now we have the technologies available to do that. It's possible now to be able to use the moon's resources, build things using the resources available there. You don't have to carry a lot of things from the Earth.
For example, let's consider fuel. Transporting fuel from Earth to construct stations on the moon would be quite a costly affair. Therefore, it would be highly advantageous if these resources could be located on the moon itself. In fact, Amitabh says this is one of the reasons that scientists became excited when water was discovered on the moon, because it implies the existence of potential energy sources on the lunar surface.
So if we are able to extract hydrogen from the water molecules, then that's the ready-made fuel that we have, which we can use to power our facilities, which we can use to launch our rockets much further and send much deeper space probes from moon. So that is the whole thing that is unveiling in front of us right now. It's not just about going to the moon, but using moon to go much further.
You were listening to 3 Things by the Indian Express. Today's show was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar. It was written and produced by me, Rahel Philipose, Utsa, Sarmin and Shashank Bhargava. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone who you think will like it. Share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Podcasts and write to us at podcasts@indianexpress.com.